Today, the world found out that Alan Arkin passed away on June 29th, 2023. What you're going to watch here is an interview with Bob Costas from 1990. So he did a lot and accomplished a lot in the time since then. I mean, he most recently was winning Primetime Emmys for the Kominsky Method. He won an Oscar for Little Miss Sunshine. And what about Glenn Ross? You can go on and on and on and on. This is one of our greatest actors that we watched for 5 or more decades, 6 decades. So rest in peace, Alan Arkin. You gave us a lot. Thank you.
Thanks for staying up later. With us tonight is Alan Arkin, the Oscar-nominated, Tony Award-winning actor. And let's just start arbitrarily with the role that got you your first Oscar nomination back in the 60s. The Russians are coming. What are your recollections of it?
Well, I mean, I'd waited 20 years to do a film. It's all I've ever wanted to do is be an actor and film actor. And I'd waited 20 years to make a movie. And there it was, and I'd done a lot of homework and paid a lot of dues, I felt, and I got a lot of laughs in my rehearsals, and then it came time to do a take, and I do a take, and nobody would laugh. So I go to my wife, and I say, my God, I don't know what's going on. I said, I must be freezing when the camera's rolling, because I'm not getting any laughs. And a week and a half went by, and I got more and more panicked, and I finally, after a week and a half, thinking that I was going to get fired, that I'd lost it, realized that, of course, nobody can laugh because the camera's rolling. It would ruin the voice track.
What sort of feedback does an actor get? Be it a dramatic role
What do you mean,
or a
working?
comedic role when you're working, as opposed to on the stage or as opposed to a guy doing stand-up comedy where the feedback is immediate. What's your barometer while you're there on the set?
Well, your barometer is, as far as I'm concerned, what your barometer should always be, is what your heart is telling you, if it's cooking or if it's not cooking. You always know. I think people always know. I think people kid themselves a lot, pretend that they know. It's going great, isn't it? You hear that question, you know they're not sure. If people walk off, I know when I'm directing something, immediately when somebody knows that they've done something that's very good. There's a twinkle in the eye, even if it's a sad or tragic scene, there's a kind of light in the eye that happens after a person's done the scene well. You always know. You don't know what, you kid yourself a lot of times when it's not going well into thinking that it's going well, but when it's going well, you know, and everybody around you knows too. It's just, there's something happens, and to me, it's purer than getting there's something wonderfully exhilarating from getting applause from an audience, but there's a purer thing when everybody who's connected with the event knows that it's working.
When you're directing, do you usually have an idea of the one right way in your mind that the actors should play a scene? Or do you leave yourself open to the possibility that there are 3 or 4 possible emotionally correct reactions?
That's a very good question.
For this actress to have,
That's
and I'll see how it plays.
What I always do is I don't go into a play directing unless I have a very strong image that I'm excited about of what I want to do with it. And then what I will always do initially is allow an actor to show me what they want to come up with first. And then if they, my experience has been that they, most of the time, don't come up with something initially that makes me jump up and down and makes me want to change my vision of what I'm doing. But there have been occasions, there have been maybe 3 or 4 occasions over the years when I've directed something that an actor came up with something that was so exciting that I had to change my vision of what the entire thing was going to be.
The scene where you grab Audrey Hepburn in Wait Until Dark, still one of the most frightening, heart-stopping things. When that hand comes out of the dark.
Yeah.
Audiences almost had heart
failure. It was a leap. It wasn't, I leapt it. I took about a 10-foot leap. Yeah. I have trouble talking about that film because I hated playing that character. It's a wonderful film. I still, I have a lot of respect for it as a whole. I hated playing the character, and I hated being mean to her. She was such a lovely presence, this woman. She's so, it's so much like being with royalty in the best sense of the word that I had a miserable time for 3 months being that. I just didn't want to be that guy. And in fact, I felt so bad about it that I wrote her a letter a couple of months ago. I mean, carrying that with me for about 20 years. And I finally wrote to her saying that if I had seemed funny on the set at that time, it's because I just felt awful about doing those things there. You know, you can't ever totally separate the... You can't. It's you doing it. Whether you're pretending you're somebody else, it's still you pretending you're somebody else. And she never answered.
Well, it's only 2 months. She probably gets a lot of mail. She's probably just getting to it as we speak.
Yeah.
It may be waiting for you in the mailbox when you get back home.
I gotta go, Bob. Yeah. No, that was hard.
What prompted the letter? Did you happen to see it on the Late Show?
I heard her mention my name. She mentioned my name on the last Academy Award. She thanked all of the leading men she'd worked with over the years, and she put my name in among them from Wait Until Dark. And I was so touched by that because I felt I was a kind of negative presence on that film that I wrote to her about it.
Do most actors see the big picture or only
No.
concentrate on their own
Most actors,
performance?
unfortunately, only see their own performance. And well, it's not because of my nature necessarily, but it's my training in Second City. All the Second City actors I know have a sense of what the event is about. I have to talk less to improvisational actors than any group of actors in the world because they immediately come on and they know what their role is in the whole, what their character is supposed to do, what relationship it has, their character has to the other parts. And I find it saves an enormous amount of time, not only for the director, but for the actor as well, if you get a sense of what function your character has to fulfill. And most actors don't think that way. Most of the time, as a director, you have to tell the actor, no, that's no good because your character has to blah, blah, blah. They have to do this, they have to do that.
Or explain why you did exactly what you wanted to do in this scene, but for reasons beyond you, we got to do it again.
Yeah. Would you say that again?
You know, for example, the shot didn't block out right, or someone else did something slightly off-kilter that we want to do again.
Right.
Even though you delivered what you thought in this particular scene was your best effort, sad to say we got to do it again, and you have to understand why.
Right. Yeah, something that I always do when I'm directing, I don't know a lot of directors that do this, that I wish they did, because it ends up being the kind of theater that not only I, but I think everybody really loves to see, is that I always insist that the actors understand this entire event, so that they're conscious of their serving something that's bigger than they are, that's bigger than I am, that comes through the playwright. No, that's a very good thing you're doing there, but you can't do it because this character, blah, blah, blah. A lot of directors will try to do nothing but give you your internal reasons, which is good, but it tends to focus an actor more and more and more on their own selfish ideas instead of making it a ball game, which is what I want to see on stage. I want to see a team. I want to see a group effort on the stage.
You think there's a legitimate parallel between a director's role and the role of a manager or a coach in sports?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I use that analogy all the time.
You know, some coaches say, if the ball player understands what he's supposed to do, I don't care if he understands what I'm trying to do overall, as long as he can perform his part along the assembly line, fine. And other guys say, I want them to see where they're fitting into the whole.
I don't even think I don't even think it's a discussion, really. I don't know how to answer the first guy. I don't know what to say about that. You know, it may make for a genius, but it's going to make for a very selfish situation. And that's not why people go to ball games, and it's not why people go to the theater. It's not why people go to concerts. It's not why people go to the opera or the ballet. I cannot tell you the number of times that people come up to me and I try to. When somebody comes up to me with that look in their eye, I try to figure out which movie they're going to talk about or what they're going to say. It's a little game I play with myself. And I can't tell you the number of times people come up to me and say, were you having a good time when you made The In-Laws? It looked like you were all having such a wonderful time. Or when you were making The Russians Are Coming, or Hard as and Lonely. There's about 4 or 5 movies they say that with. And they always pick the ones that were wonderful fun. There have been films that were torture, but they always seem to know which ones were fun.
Where that you said that it was in Second City that you learned how to be funny.
Yeah, it's true.
When you watch somebody who is more naturally funny then, when you see someone like Eddie Murphy, who may be unpolished, who may make bad choices, but who obviously at the age of 20 could stand up and with just some intuitive ability make people laugh hysterically, does that seem to you like it's on another planet from what you do?
No, not really, because I think on another planet. No, because I mean, I have moments like that every once in a while at home when I'll do bits like Eddie Murphy does. My kids and I do that in the film. I would never in a million years want to do that in front of an audience. My training has been as an actor. I studied acting. It's the only thing I know anything about formally. I studied for years and years. And humor was, for me, came out of character, always. I don't know how to do it otherwise. I don't know how to be funny unless I'm playing a character. And when I was in Second City for the first couple of months, I thought I was going to get fired because I wasn't funny. And then one day I just stumbled on, by sheer accident, a character that I could play that no matter what I did as that character, I got laughs. So I just hung on to that character.
What did that guy do? What was that character?
I don't remember. It was one of 3 or 4 people. I don't remember which it was.
One of the ethnic type guys that you do?
Yeah. I don't remember who it was. But that character, when I played him, I didn't think of myself as particularly funny when I played that character, but the audience did. So that was fine. I hung on to that character like a leech for about 6 weeks, and then I started adding other characters to that, and I would get laughs. But I would never try to be funny. If I tried to be funny, I would always fall on my face. I would always just try to hang on to the truth of that character as I know. That's the only way I know how to be funny. If I've tried it in a couple of things, then I've fallen on my face miserably.
What could almost anybody who was willing to apply themselves, whether they had the necessary talent to truly do it at a high level or not, what could almost anybody learn about acting if they studied it? What could I learn in a year about acting?
In a year? I don't know about a year, but within 3 years you could learn all there is to know about the craft of acting. You wouldn't necessarily know all there is to know about yourself in the craft of acting. That'd take a lifetime. But you would have all the tools that you would need to go out and become a decent actor.
Can actors watch plays, watch movies without automatically being drawn to some sort of analysis of what's going on internally? Can you receive it the same way that I receive it?
Yeah, I think I receive it better than the layman does.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
You know, a lot of people say, well, you have such critical faculties, you don't enjoy anything anymore. That's not true. I think I enjoy more than people who don't know anything about it, because first of all, I know the extraordinary amount of pain and suffering that goes into it, and work and trials, and second of all, there are levels of things that I can appreciate in it that maybe a lay audience won't get. Maybe. But I just think that comes from studying. I don't think it's necessarily my own abilities. I think when you study something, you get more appreciation out of it.
Who does things, either on stage or on screen, when you see them, you say, I could never do that? Not because it's at a higher level, but because it's so different. I could never do that. It's like, here's a guy who can juggle, and I can't juggle. I can walk on my hands, but I can't juggle.
Well, there's different things, and there's also better things. There are people around who are better than I am, who reach areas with their work that I'll never get to. I mean, the first person who comes to mind is the guy who I've always felt is to be the greatest actor in the United States, a man named Steve Hill, whom most people don't know about. But when I see him, I don't know how he does it or where it comes from. I mean, I've called him and I've talked to him about that. I called him a couple of months ago after I saw him in Running on Empty, in which he has one scene. He's sitting at a table talking to Christine Lottie. One scene, sitting at a table that lasts 4 minutes. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't move his arms. And it's one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my life. The camera doesn't move. It's genius. It's just, I came away from that with just a sense of knowing this person for all of my life and all of his life, and just being deeply moved. A 4-minute scene, sitting at a table in a restaurant.
I wonder if you'll ever know what it's like not to see your child for 14 years.
Dad.
Not knowing whether she's living or dead. Not knowing whether that child is responsible for the death and mutilation of other human beings. Whether to hold yourself responsible for that death and mutilation. Because it is your child. It's pulling the triggers, setting the bombs.
He's a great, I'll never be able to do what he does. I don't know how he does it, where it comes from. I don't know if I have the strength to invest in it, the kind of energy and whatever it is he invests in it. I mean, I've seen him do this over the years, just performances that are so great that people don't want to know about it. It just takes too much effort for an audience to watch. And I don't mean that it's grotesque, but great art takes an investment from an audience. It takes energy from an audience. You can't just sit and lay back and reach for a beer and talk to the person sitting next to you. You got to pay attention, or things are going to go by you. Anything that's the better something is, the more attention it requires of you, the more you have to participate in it.
When you played the role of the mute in The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, did you go about it, roughly to put these in categories, the way Dustin Hoffman does these roles, where he's got to live it, he's got to be inside of it, he's got to hang around with people who know this experience firsthand? John Voight, for example, when he was in Coming Home, sat in a wheelchair for 9 or 10 weeks to get into that position. On the other hand, John Malkovich played a blind man and told me that he just went in and did it. He didn't want to go and learn how to read Braille. He didn't want that kind of studied approach. He felt it and he did it. Where do you fall in that
Depends
spectrum?
on the project. I have no master plan. I used to have a master plan for exactly how to do everything, and I was wrong 95% of the time, so I gave up having master plans. I try to keep myself open to the needs of the particular part and the particular project, the actors I'm working with and the director I'm working with, to the extent I possibly can. If I'm afraid of a part, if I'm anxious about it, if my imagination is closing up on me, or if it's very naturalistic, I mean, if it needs techniques that many, many people are going to recognize are false if I do it badly, like being a doctor or a dentist or whatever, then I'm going to make sure it looks good and feels comfortable. But my comfort dictates to me the extent of the research I'm going to do. Shakespeare didn't do any research, and his stuff is pretty good. I mean, he played around with history to an enormous degree. I found that it's a question of what frees you, what opens you up. Sometimes I am opened up by a lot of study. Sometimes I'm opened up by not thinking at all, not thinking for a second about what I'm doing. There's an exercise I do periodically now when I really have the courage. It takes more courage than anything I've ever done as an actor. And that is to prepare and prepare and to prepare before I go on. And then, just before going on, to force my mind totally off the event, to force it into something a million miles away from what I'm going to be doing. And so that when action is said, I'm forced into a kind of spontaneity that otherwise I would not necessarily allow myself. We all have agendas, you know, how I mean, if you see yourself on television, it happens to me too most of the time. I can see my agenda of how I want to look, of what I want to sound like. I mean, I see other people doing it too. You put on your deep voice, you put on your good smile, you this and that. And I want to force myself into a place where my agenda is gone, and I'm just concentrated on the event and the character. And that means sometimes tricking myself into doing that. And it's really exciting, and I've gotten some of the best results I've ever gotten in my life by doing that, by letting my subconscious and my superconscious, if you will, do the work, and trying to get my ego out of the way, my own agenda needs for what the part's got to consist of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself looking back on particularly outstanding roles? You've been in a lot of movies, but obviously you must have a list of a half dozen or so. This was the best opportunity, or among the best opportunities for excellence. And looking back on those roles and saying with some regret, I could do it better now.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Even as well perceived as it was, even if it got an Oscar nomination, damn it.
Yeah.
I can never do that guy again. This confluence of circumstances is never going to happen again, and I know how to do it better now.
Yeah, but that's great. That means you've grown. If you don't do that, then where have you come? I mean, if I did that if I had a performance 30 years ago that I wasn't better then, if I couldn't do better now, then it means I haven't come anywhere in that 30 years.
Alan Arkin will be seen in 2 movies, Edward Scissorhand and Havana, both coming out around Christmas time. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming by.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. And we're out of here. See you later.
Thanks for watching Cleveland Live Music. It's awfully bright out here. I'd click on another one of my videos. Quit looking into the sun. Your mother told you not to do that. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel more, there's GoFundMe and Patreon information in the video descriptions. Ooh, ooh!